Hello everyone, my name is Adam Hamer, and this is part 4 of my testimonial about the 1990s GATE program and all the subsequent bullshit that happened afterwards. Anyways, I couldn't find my tinfoil hat, so because of that I'm not able to tune into the brain chip and receive the information about the non-human intelligences that I said I would cover earlier. So instead I'm going to talk about the extremely normal topic of psychic assassins, and this is going to be part 1 of a series on assassins and government created assassins. So we're going to start again with the document that yesterday I introduced everyone to. That was the DIA document, Controlled Offensive Behavior. I will link it in the bio. You're going to see here on this page. I'm going to read this part to you. This is written by the DIA. Number 5, the possibility of creating assassins through hypnotic techniques on prisoners of war exists. As was pointed out above, the subject does not need to be willing to enter into such a condition. Once the captive has been placed in a suitable hypnotic state, then one only need to establish the post-hypnotic suggestion or plan for the assassination. After the prisoner is released and returned to his organization, he will carry out his assignment through his unconscious state while appearing perfectly rehabilitated in his wakeful state. The main problem in the assassin plan is in the area of post-hypnotic reinforcement. There have been some ideas mentioned that suggest one needs to establish the reinforcement pattern during initial hypnosis. Some object that will reinforce his goal whenever he looks, at it, hears a sound, etc. The real problem for the friendly forces is the detection of these mentally altered individuals. Hello, hi, nice to meet you. At the present time, there is no foolproof method of detection. There's no test which can discover these agents. Blood pressure, heart rate, electroencephalograph, psychogalvanic reflex, all these devices which one can use to detect the most subtle bodily changes are worthless, for there are no bodily changes. Drugs, at least for the present, appear to be of no value. Further, there are certain safeguards that the hypnotic method provides for the enemy. Most important is the conviction of innocence which the man himself has. He would never act guilty if ever accused of seeking information, would act quite honestly indignant. The conviction of innocence on the part of the agent is perhaps his greatest safeguard under questioning by our authorities. The Soviets are aware of the above-mentioned possibilities and appear to be using certain aspects of psi research in order to manipulate an individual's mental behavior toward these activities. Okay, so we have a really interesting connection here between the DIA's research on psychoenergetics and weaponizing human beings, the creation of assassins through hypnosis, the legacy of MK Ultra and the Artichoke program, and the discussion, frankly, of this being not only something that's real, but something that's understood to be real by military intelligence. And this is dated July 1972, as far back as 1972, which, if you've done enough research on the topic, or in my case, if you lived it, you would understand that the public narrative that Artichoke was stopped, was failure, that's not true. It was a huge success, and they told the public that because so. Why would they tell anyone if a project succeeds? It's the same as Stargate. Why did Stargate have that fucking stupid Kurt Russell movie come out? Well, that's a psyop to cover up for the real USAFs that changed names after it stopped calling itself that and was using non-consenting subjects such as, Anyways, controlled offensive behavior. That's where that quote came from. Shows that the Defense Intelligence Agency was interested in researching that. Next, I am going to go over some of my Privacy Act files first, but after that, we're going to talk about this document, this Air Force document about psychic warfare. So, first, I want to talk about my favorite, the Privacy Act. Right now, we're going to talk about assassination and the Director of National Intelligence, and the Inspector General of the Intel Community, and how they're not living up to the standards required of them in such position. And I will prove it. So first, as you know, I have been looking to get my files as to what occurred in the GATE program, and I've been finding a lot of roadblocks from the agencies who have signaled to me that they have these files. Now, understand that the Inspector General of the Intel Community was contacted by me in addition to the filing of these last September, where I reported serious crimes that occurred under the auspices of these programs. That complaint was taken very seriously, as I received a corresponding criminal case number for that from the ICIG regarding crimes against my person as a child and into adulthood in December. That number is listed on the civil suit, and it's 774-CO. I spoke to the ICIG again in January. They had told me then they were still investigating it, and they were working with the FBI at that point. Subsequently, I gave an interview to the FBI. Afterwards, I was unable to get any updates on the case about the crimes against my own person, and was stonewalled when I would ask what was going on with it. This is again about a case where I'm the victim, and I'm cut out of the process, but I'm aware it's going on. That in and of itself is really messed up and miscarriage of justice, especially as someone who had to live that, the actual crimes themselves. It's not okay. And further, the fact of the matter is, I spoke with the National Reconnaissance Office Inspector General as I gave multiple other reports about the same topic, and they confirmed to me that the ICIG was still investigating the case, and it was still open, and they were still investigating who did this to me through the GATE program. And keep in mind that the ICIG's jurisdiction also covers intel agents and black programs. And the National Reconnaissance Office communicated to me that the case on my persons is classified, as I was unable to get any updates, and they prevented me from providing any details under warning about what occurred to me, in addition to what I'd already reported. Now, keep in mind, I filed a number of criminal reports, all of which were shut down by the ICIG because they claimed jurisdiction and then hid it from me, the victim. So that, aside from FOIA, is a huge red flag. Then you have to look at also testimony of other whistleblowers. I will link below in the bio. There's a great article about the recent presidential non-disclosure waiver as relates to the UAP legacy program. And this article is called Catch and Kill, and it's from a whistleblower. And what he states is consistent with my lived experience. It's that you wouldn't want to come forward if you were on any of these black programs to the ICIG, which is one of the listed entities on this new waiver, for the reason being that it is described by this individual as what he calls a catch and kill program, which I am going to explain is what I encountered. So I reported what occurred to me in the GATE program. I had been given a case number in December. A couple months later, I was updated. I provided updates and information. I have childhood drawings, I have medical corroboration, etc. So I provided everything that I could, and then I get cut out of the process. Meanwhile, I'm getting a bunch of weird replies to my FOIAs from the DNI. First, we have this one on January 13th. Director of National Intelligence Office. It's a Privacy Act reply about me. It says, they rephrased what I asked for, and it was from December 5th. It says, requesting records about yourself pertaining to, quote, behavioral modification and including all black ops and or SAP projects, end quote. Then they go down, they do alphabet soup, and they in particular cite B1, K1, and B3, which are person-specific national security and defense exemptions in the context of a Privacy Act reply. So this tries to again claim it's a GLOMAR. It's not a GLOMAR because in order to cite these exemptions, as I understand it, under the Privacy Act, one needs to, legally speaking, have files in hand. So the difference between this and an actual GLOMAR is no files need to be in hand if you claim a GLOMAR. If you claim a exemption, they do in the context of the Privacy Act, because it's not the same as FOIA. Further, that brings me to one of the most concerning filings of all at the center of the lawsuit, and why I brought the lawsuit, because this is completely outrageous. This is outstanding, by the way, and I'm going to show you what I filed that got this. Okay, so this is about active assassination attempts, electronic attacks, and behavioral modification attacks against my person perpetrated by the ICIG. Presumably they wrote this, and those under them, which is the military intel apparatus. In addition to that, you also have here records related to medical and experimental data. They have case numbers, DP 2026-00079, that's the medical data one, DP-2026-00080, that's the one related to them attempting to assassinate me. Anyways, that's not cool. I filed some criminal reports about that because that's not legal. Not only is that not cool, it's completely unacceptable. To which I was told by the Department of Justice Inspector General, not that it wasn't true, not that they weren't planning to assassinate you because you exposed Monarch and what they did to you and its connection to Gate, but literally said to me, out of jurisdiction. All right, so that's not acceptable either, and I'm making this video to respond to that. Anyways, gonna go and show you the initial requests for those replies that are still outstanding, by the way. So that means they have those because they acknowledge those specific file sets. They obviously got a system of records hit. They're way far beyond the time limit, because keep in mind, this was dated 20 of March. Yeah, it's not March anymore. It's months after that, and I filed a lawsuit. That's defaulted, meaning they have those files, they acknowledge they have those files, and they just defaulted on them. And what are those files about? Assassination. So, and they're also about my withheld medical records from the SAFs. So let me read you what I wrote. Here's one of them. It says, also, before I read it, submitted, these were both submitted March 12th, okay? This is a Privacy Act request. Any and all files as relates to my persons and SAP or PSI personnel. I am seeking an itemized list of all contractors and agency personnel with any nexus to SAP and my persons. Further, all files from Edwin May regarding my persons, including but not limited to phase locked loop EMF, Squid, Xeno, etc. Regarding SAIC, Lockheed, Leidos, quote, shadow bases, unquote, cross-check against my persons. The Defense Intelligence Agency allowed May to maintain, quote, off-book, unquote, journals that contains critical medical data about my unauthorized neurosurgery per filing nexus. The, quote, K1 tag. In my existing filings, the, quote, K1 designation is being used as a tool of fraudulent concealment rather than a legitimate classification. As federal contractors, defendants May and SAIC owed a duty of care to minor subjects. Performing neurosurgery and irradiation without informed consent constitutes a gross deviation from the National Research Act of 1974 and the Belmont Report. I demand all lab notes, shadow database files, and medical records from my SAP nexus as regarding my physical person and grievous bodily harm and unauthorized neurological damage and medical procedures and battery, plus additional grievous crimes. All files on what and how the SAIC Squid array works with the body and my persons. Copy that. In addition to that, I also filed this with the DNI. Same day. See? And it says, note, regarding request 279-3421, that's the one I just read, crime fraud exception to privacy secrecy / federal crimes. The records sought are not protected by, quote, national security or, quote, work product, end quote, privilege because they contain evidence of federal crimes, parentheses, battery, child abuse, and unauthorized experimentation committed on a federal enclave. This request concerns the culpable element as well. I need a list for proper documentation and investigation of all personnel with nexus to these illegal and inhumane SAPs, which destroyed my life. Anyways, the reply that I received to those, this guy, the first one. That's unacceptable. That's treason. And further, the idea that the same person who wrote this, the same office, is the same one that's managing the investigation that I was stonewalled from that involves crimes against me as a child is shameful and gross. And as I said before, is corroborated by other whistleblowers who describe what the ICIG's current tactics are as catch and kill. So that what that means, as I understand it, is that when whistleblowers come to them with actual proof of government wrongdoing, they don't want to hear that because that's not what they exist for right in the current iteration. They're not actually working for the Constitution as they swore an oath to do. See, what catch and kill is about is it's akin to the Monarch closeout and reclamation programs. And by Monarch, I'm referring to trauma-based mind control. Its name's obviously changed since its inception. Too many people know about it, and it's very real. The CIA didn't even deny it in the 90s when questioned at Congress. They simply stated along the lines of, we don't do that anymore. Not saying they never did that. They knew exactly what trauma-based mind control and Monarch was. They never said, we don't do that. They only said that later once they were running a full PSYOP and a campaign with multiple other agencies to do psychological warfare on the American people and cover up all the crimes that they did to American citizens. Okay, so now we're gonna transition into, as I stated before, this document and talk a little bit about psychic warfare. This document is called Psychic Warfare, Exploring the Mind Frontier, written by the Air War College, Air University, Dolan McKelvey, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force. I will link this in the bio. This document has a lot of good info. It says it was written in May 1988. Anyways, it details a lot of government plans to research psychoenergetics, to learn from the studies of the Russians and their research in psychoenergetics, and it also describes a very bizarre research project that is very worth talking about. So here, I'll show you this right here. It's about the stopping of an animal's heart with the mind. And this is where the discussion of the research from Stargate and psychoenergetics crosses over into what's known as psychic assassination. Now, in further videos, I'm going to expand on this because this ties into what I experienced firsthand, and this ties into what some of the overall projects were about, including MK-OFF and successor programs. Anyways, here. Personnel. Before discussing potential personnel applications of Psi, let me remind you that at least 4 of the US's best-known parapsychology research laboratories are certain, quote, psychic powers might be used to physically harm, sicken, or kill individuals, unquote. Their confidence is probably based on experiments like that done in 1975 at San Francisco Medical Research Institute with healer Dan Kraft. He was to try, psychically, to lower the blood pressure and heart rate of a laboratory rat in a plexiglass cage. The observers, however, had an opportunity to watch for 20 minutes and record the steady decrease of the rat's heart rate all the way to 0, parentheses 41:81. He mentally killed the rat without any contact. Similarly, Nina Kulagina of the Soviet Union is known for her psychokinetic abilities. After just 40 seconds of focusing her mental influences, she was able to completely stop an isolated frog heart from a distance of about 1.5 meters. When we, parentheses, brackets, Soviet professor Gennady Sergeyev examined it, we found that it was torn apart as if bombarded by lightning balls of microscopic size. The energy can reach incredible intensity. Okay, so to conclude this video, not only is the topic of programmable assassins, government research into mind control, and the idea of using hypnosis and behavior modification to create both a psychic assassin and a non-psychic assassin of reality, it's something that our government has practiced for quite a while in secret under the auspices of national defense and national security, and unfortunately have chosen to use their own civilians as unwitting test subjects. And I speak from experience being subjected to this program non-consensually as a child, which lasts longitudinally. And I will get to that in another video, but for now that's enough. And I just wanted to cover a little bit about the ICIG's misconduct and broach the topic about artichoke. And I will dive further into it because it ties into something that was covered in a great book called Virtual Government by Alex Constantine that he called the Manchurian Preschooler. So I'll be expanding on that and how that relates to the GATE programs in the 90s and my experiences, and I'll be reading more of my incredibly sketchy Privacy Act replies, withholdings, and utter nonsense that I received from the agencies who took part in this. And also further, I want to mention that the multitude of criminal reports that I filed, evidence that I provided, and the fact that the case into who perpetrated these crimes within the intel community is still open at the police department that oversees intel community crimes says it all. So I know that the people who are in the government who took part in this, especially the ones who watch these, they don't want to take ownership of what other people did and what prior generations did, but it's not acceptable. It's just clearly out in the open, and it's a pattern of behavior. You don't have to look very far to see Mike Lucchino, Jeffrey Epstein. What is going on with that? Why has no one been held accountable for that? Disgusting. The McMartin case, Franklin Presidio. Literally, we're gonna do a deep dive on the finders, but that's not for right now, and it's not gonna go too deep because it's disgusting. But I basically just want to talk about the FBI report and how they cited it's a CIA internal matter. There's more to it, but yeah, anyways, look how I have a fucking butterfly tattoo. I got that fucking shit before I knew that I was subjected to trauma-based mind control consciously. Anyways, fuck the people who did this to me, and I'm doing this so that y'all don't do this to anyone else again, and I want to make sure that my story gets out because that's wrong. This shit is wrong. It's all wrong. This ain't American. This un-American. It's treason. Yeah. Goodbye.